want to thank you for joining us live today. As you know, this webinar is being hosted by us at EURAXESS North America. I know most of you are familiar with us, and for those who are not, we will share a link in the chat to subscribe to our free flash note emails, where we share funding opportunities, in-person and virtual events like this one, news and more. We also have some upcoming in-person events in Canada and Washington, D.C. that we're really excited to have our members and friends attend. We'll also send a reminder for that towards the end of this webinar. And I will open by giving a reminder that this session is being recorded, and the speaker presentations and the recording will be shared along with any common resources mentioned and frequently asked questions. So do share any technical issues in the chat, your questions on the content of the staff exchanges and MSCA in general via the Q&A function, and you can reach us afterwards by email and social media. So as a reminder, earlier this year, we posted other webinars on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, specifically on the postdoctoral fellowships, or the MSCA-PF, and EURAXESS worldwide, the 9 hubs of EURAXESS around the world, of which we are one, hosted one on finding a host institute for the postdoctoral fellowships. So for all things MSCA, you have 4 representatives present, 2 from UCRO and 2 from EURAXESS North America, and we hope to continue to be a resource for you. Today, we're fortunate to have these 2 speakers from the UK Research Office, as I mentioned. They're based in Brussels, and they're joining us to share on the MSCA staff exchanges. They know not only about the staff exchanges action within MSCA, but they're also familiar with the North America research landscape and can give insights into the state of the United Kingdom's upcoming relationship with the EU when it comes to Horizon Europe, which I know is very timely news and is a frequent topic of our Q&As. So I think this webinar may be the first where we have some really exciting and concrete information updates to give if you haven't already heard over the last several weeks. So I'll briefly present here. Allow me to share my screen. I'll ask my fellow speakers to let me know if there's any technical issues here. I want to give the express reminder into what EURAXESS North America is. I think most people in attendance may have found it through our and our colleagues' presentations. But with that being said, if you're not already subscribed to our bi-monthly flash note emails, these are little emails where we send information on upcoming funding and mobility schemes, events that are both in-person and virtual, and then EU North America related research innovation news. So you can scan the QR code there. We will be sharing a link in the chat momentarily, but this is our main form of outreach along with our homepage and social media. And the EURAXESS North America homepage looks like this. These are the main header sections, not necessarily for the staff exchanges, but for other mobility schemes within MSCA and for the European Research Council grants. You can use the hosting tool. You can also find jobs and funding at any given moment. There's over 10,000 jobs that are both within academia and in the private sector in that job section. And then again, you have EURAXESS Europe-based colleagues and EURAXESS worldwide representatives to answer all of your questions. So for the most part, I also want to give a quick reminder. When we say Europe, we're generally referring to the 27 European Union member states, but then also in simplified terms, 17 countries that pay into the budget to get access to the EU's Research and Innovation Framework Program. So although Switzerland is not currently associated to Horizon Europe, the 7-year R&I framework program, the other countries here do or will in the near future. One exception is New Zealand. They're not geographically close to Europe, so they don't have their own EURAXESS national portal. But our colleague who's based in Australia can answer any New Zealand or Australia specific questions. So with that said, these are 43 European countries at your fingertips. If you're based in North America or not, we're still happy to be a resource to you. So I just want to leave this EURAXESS national portal graphic as a reminder to all the different countries with which you can form partnerships. And to close with a reminder about our mandate, Horizon Europe is a 7-year framework program as the EU structures it. The previous one was called Horizon 2020. Our main mandates are pillars 1 and 2. Pillar 1, in simplified terms, for individual researcher mobility, although you'll see staff exchanges is perhaps something of an exception or differently structured one to that. And then pillar 2, unlike the bottom 1 calls in pillar 1, pillar 2 are top-down, defined by the EU. You, as a principal investigator, apply as part of a research consortium. So regardless of if you're a researcher yourself or an administrator or you support researchers, pillars 1 and 2 are where we're very happy to network with you, be in touch, and support you. I've mentioned that we want to contact you or be in touch with you. So North America at EURAXESS.net is how you can reach my colleague, Dr. Daria Buchner-Karajan, and I, and then all those 4 major social media channels right there that you see. So with that, again, I'll encourage you just to sign up for our flash note emails, and I'll leave it with this so our great speakers can go. I'm going to stop my screen share here. So without any further delay, I would like to invite both Dr. Bronwyn-Hyde and Anne Mirovish, who are both UCRO or UK national contact points with UCRO, to speak on the MSCA staff exchanges. So thank you very much, Bronwyn.
Thank you very much, and for inviting us to speak today and participate in the event and a great opportunity called Staff Exchange. So I will just call up my slides and also apologize if I get slightly overexcited about all things Marie Curie. So we did practice. Hopefully everything is fine. All technical issues, there's no technical issues. Excellent. So without further ado, we're really here this evening, well, for evening for us, the morning for you guys, to talk about the Marie Curie staff exchanges. And what we'll do is give a little introduction to ourselves. What do we mean when talking about the opportunities within the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions? And then we'll focus on the Marie Curie, the staff exchange, really giving you an overview of the call itself, eligibility criteria, how you as a third country can participate, and more importantly, why you should participate. And at that point, I will hand over to my colleague, Anne, who will cover why you should be getting involved in such an excellent scheme, a little bit on the submission process as an associated partner. And you're probably going, what's associated partner? Don't worry, we'll explain all of that in our presentation. And then there'll also be time for questions and answers at the end. And as Jackson said, we're always really happy to answer any questions that you might have, later today, tomorrow, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. We really are here to support you and your engagement with the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. So a little bit about Anne and myself. We work for the UK Research Office, which is based in Brussels. We've been in Brussels. The office has been in Brussels for almost 40 years now. And our remit is to support the UK's engagement in research and innovation funded by the European Union, in this case, Horizon Europe. We run a series of events as well as fact sheets and information. And importantly, for today's session, on behalf of the UK government, we actually provide the National Contact Point Service. So this is a service where we interact, kind of that liaison between the Commission and the communities interested in the specific funding calls for the European Research Council, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, and then other parts of the Horizon Europe called widening participation and cost as well. If you are interested in any of those areas, particularly ERC and Marie Curie, we do have dedicated newsletters, which we would encourage you to register for, in addition to the excellent information that Jackson provides. This is a bit more targeted specifically on Marie Curie and information that we think is really important that organizations and individuals be aware of if they are thinking of applying to or already involved in ERC or Marie Curie funded research. And it's only a monthly newsletter, so you won't be bombarded with anything as well. It's also an excellent way to find out about our events, and Anne will also update you on some events that we're going to be having. We will provide a lot more detail specifically on the staff exchange call later this month and next month. So before we start talking about the staff exchange, I will kind of cover where we stand with the UK with regards to participation in Horizon Europe, as Jackson mentioned. So I'm hoping that you are familiar with many of the things on this slide, but in December of 2020, which seems like a lifetime ago, the negotiations on the UK and EU trade and cooperation agreement concluded. And this included the intention of the UK to associate to Horizon Europe. Finally, on the 7th of September of this year, there was a joint announcement by the EC and the UK government to confirm the association of the United Kingdom to Horizon Europe and the Copernicus program as of the 1st of January 2024. This includes full participation in the program for UK applicants, with a very small exception of the investment fund element of something called the EIC Accelerator, which sits into Pillar 3, which is about investment funding. UK-based entities and researchers can continue to fully participate in, and that includes coordinating projects and receiving funding from the European Union under Horizon Europe for the lifetime of those program, from the call starting from Horizon 2020. From the 2024, it's been a very long day already, 2024 work program. For those calls that are in the work programs prior to the 2024 work program, so for example, the current staff exchange call, which is a 2023 call, the UK can fully participate in that, but would receive funding from the Horizon Europe guarantee. And this kind of just outlines what I've just said. So calls of the 2024 identifier are covered by the association announcement. For those calls with the 2023 call identifier, will, for the UK partners, will be funded by the Horizon Europe Guarantee. So this is national funding that was put in place to support the UK's ongoing participation in European funding in light of the delay in association from the original announcement in 2020 to the announcement in September of this year. So what I'm hoping is that if you feel very confident that if you are being approached by partners in the United Kingdom, particularly for this call, that you to work with them, that you really do take that opportunity, as the UK can fully participate in the ongoing calls as a result of the announcement. And this is just a little bit about what it means specifically for the staff exchange calls. So specifically at the proposal stage, UK-based applicants can fully coordinate projects and fully be involved and participate, sending and receiving secondments. And I'll explain what all this means, don't worry. But when it comes to signing the grant agreement, if the project is successful, then they will have to be funded from the Horizon Europe Guarantee. They would not be eligible for funding from the European Commission. So hopefully you're all very excited about the status of the UK, but really we are here today to talk about the staff exchange and the excellent opportunity that is presented within this funding call. One of the nice things that I'll go through with MSCA-Curie is all the calls are annual. So if you're not ready for this year's call, then there will be another call next year, which you can also look at applying to. So before I go specifically into the staff exchange, I think it's really important to put MSCA-Curie in context. So you just saw this lovely three-pillar structure from Jackson, and it's just really to kind of highlight where MSCA-Curie fits. And under this pillar of excellence is really about supporting the excellence of research and the people underpinning that research within the European Union and the associated countries. And MSCA-Curie really has a strong focus on people. It's about encouraging people to become researchers and innovators, making sure that researchers have the necessary skills and international experience to really support their long-term employability, making sure that they have attractive career opportunities and are working in excellent research environments. Really looking at supporting and encouraging innovation and developing an entrepreneurial mindset of the researchers to really promote the EU's attractiveness for talent and to also directly contribute to EU policy objectives. MSCA-Curie is completely bottom up. So you as an applicant would have full reign of whatever you would like to do for your research project. But there is a kind of element of matching and supporting those kind of broader EU policy objectives. There really has a large emphasis on industrial collaboration and also collaboration otherwise with the non-academic sector. And we'll talk about that, but effectively the academic sector is quite defined, really research focused, and the non-academic sector is anything and everything that's not considered to be academic. So it's a really broad category of organizations. We're talking industry, SMEs, NGOs, museums, art galleries, anything, as I said, that's not academic. It really promotes a kind of key thing for MSCA-Curie, which is mobility. We talk about the 3 I's when we're talking about MSCA-Curie's approach to mobility. So that's international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary. And the staff exchange ticks all 3 of those boxes. So there are 5 main schemes for the MSCA-Curie actions. We have the doctoral networks, which supports doctoral training. So the development of collaborative research projects, which are implemented through the undertaking of individual PhD projects, postdoctoral fellowships, which are fellowships to support and enhance the creative and innovative potential of researchers who have a PhD. The co-fund, which finances new or existing doctoral programs and postdoctoral fellowships. And then MSCA and Citizens, which is really about public engagement and helping to bridge that gap between researchers and that public at large to really kind of boost public recognition of science and also to strengthen the relationships between research and education as well. And then why we are here today to talk about the staff exchanges, which is really aims at promoting innovative, international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary collaboration in research and innovation. So staff exchanges, one of the things that sometimes we think is just about sending people on exchange, and that is fundamentally what it is about. However, it is more than just the sum of the exchanges. The exchanges come together to complete a research and innovation project. So when we're talking about a staff exchange, we are talking about a collaborative research and innovation project of which is implemented through these individual secondments. And I'll explain all the eligibility with regards to the secondments and how they operate, but it's really important to understand that this is freedom of you as the applicant to really develop your research and your innovation project in any subject area. So we kind of talk about A to Z, archaeology to zoology, and everything and anything that's in between. It can be fundamental, really basic blue skies research, all the way to kind of near market activities. That's one of the nice things about Marie Curie is you have this complete freedom and flexibility. Within the staff exchanges, you're looking at building new or developing existing networks and collaborations, helping to increase global collaboration, but also collaboration between the sectors. So I really, as I mentioned, the 3 I's: international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary. It's not just about what happens during the implementation of the project. It's also about the longer term sustainability of these networks, that longer term knowledge transfer between the participants. And one of the things that you'll need to be able to demonstrate is the fact that this is a long-term collaboration that will hopefully exist beyond the confines of this individual project. There's also an element about developing the research and transferable skills of the staff members involved in the individual secondments, and those hosting the secondments as well, the staff that are being able to interact with the secondees, with this aim to support long-term employability. It's really an opportunity to share knowledge and ideas for the advancements of science and the development of innovation. I will say that we do use this terminology science in kind of the European context, which is really all the research, so arts, humanities, social sciences, and STEM, as opposed to maybe what we say in the UK or often in North America, which is kind of science is STEM and arts and humanities is separate. So this is really an all-inclusive, and it's really important for those of you who might be here who are in the arts and humanities and social sciences to recognize that this really is a scheme for you as well. And it's not STEM focused at all. So the project itself, as I mentioned, you are completely free to choose your own topic and the subject area. You will need to have a very clear research and innovation project with clear research objectives and deliverables. And the secondments that you will propose will need to be essential to help achieve those activities. You'll be wanting to exploit the complementary competencies of the participating organizations. You will, in addition to the individual secondments, you will also have networking activities, and you will organize conferences and workshops and all those other activities to really share knowledge and expertise. And you will also be looking at not only kind of exploiting complementarities, but also creating synergies. And then, as I mentioned, the new skill acquisition and career development. There's no limitation on the countries and nationalities that can participate. The only kind of requirement, as it were, is that the institutions who effectively will sign the grant agreement need to fulfill the requirements of Horizon Europe participation. Effectively, they need to be a legal entity, and they need to effectively pass a few other validity checks. But it'd be very few cases where those of you who'd be listening today would not actually meet that criteria. The project itself, as I said, is implemented through the secondments of staff, and that is for a period of between 1 and 12 months. The total size of the project, it runs for 4 years, and the funding is based on the number of person months. So the maximum size, as we talk about in terms of financial size, is 360 person months over this 4-year period. And your partners, the composition of your project consortium will be composed of beneficiaries. So these are organizations who are based in EU member states or countries that have associated to Horizon Europe, or third country associated partners. For those of you who are listening based in the US or Canada, you would be considered to be a third country associated partner. And there's some special requirements for associated partners, which Anne will also explain when she goes through her section. So when we're talking about the eligibility of the project, it's really broken down into 3 categories. The eligibility of the consortium, so the participants, so this collaboration between beneficiaries and associated partners. The eligibility of the individual staff who are then going to be sent on the secondments. And then the actual eligibility of the secondments themselves. And I'll go through each of these 3 sections in a second. So we're going to start and work our way through. So we'll start with the consortium and then go to staff and then the secondments themselves. So the consortium itself As I said, you just need to meet some specific criteria to be eligible to participate in Horizon Europe, which effectively you need to be a legal entity, and you can be established in the academic or the non-academic sector. Your consortium needs to be composed of at least 3 independent legal entities. Now, we're talking about organizations, but because of the legal structure of Horizon Europe, you might want to think about as at least 3 PIs based in 3 different organizations. 2 of these organizations must be based in 2 different EU member states or associated countries. If the organizations are from the same sector, so for instance, if your consortium is only composed of academic organizations, then you must include at least 1 partner from a third country. And this is why it's so important for us to come and speak with you as associated partners from a third country, because it's such a vital part to the success of these projects, this element of international mobility. Just to say, if you're kind of wondering what your status might be as an academic or non-academic organization, this is something that's determined by the European Commission, in part as part of the validation process, but also during the eligibility and admissibility checks for the application for the staff exchange. Unfortunately, it's not something that we as NCPs can actually advise on. You will really need to check with your organization, and they should have a clear understanding of what sector they would be in. This is particularly important for things like museums, where depending on what they do in terms of how much research they may or might not undertake, they may be considered to be academic or non-academic. And there's a number of other organizations that kind of fall into this category, could be either or. In terms of the consortium size, so I said that the minimum is 3, but is that usually what we see? Actually, we see no typical consortium size. We have seen successful projects ranging from the minimum of 3 organizations to kind of 20, and some of them even more than 20. I would say that once you start getting beyond kind of 6 to 10, in terms of actually management and organizing all the secondments and keeping track of everything, it gets quite complicated. So if you are going to go on that larger side or be part of a project that's on that larger side, make sure that they do have time and energy set aside for good project management, because it just can get quite unwieldy. The number of associated partners should really be reasonable and in line with the project. So as I mentioned, beneficiaries must be located in an EU member state or an associated country. Beneficiaries will send staff on secondments, and then they can host staff coming to them on secondments. They will provide training opportunities, and they will receive funding directly from the European Commission. Associated partners are located generally in a third country. They host staff on secondments, and they provide training opportunities. Their ability to send staff on secondment and to receive funding for those secondments will depend on some very specific eligibility criteria, which we'll go through in a little bit later when we're talking about the funding that's available. So the kind of second kind of eligibility criteria after the consortium is the staff who can go on the secondments. Now, just to say that you might be the PI doesn't have to go on the secondments. It can be other members of staff from the organization that will go on the secondments in addition to or instead of the PI. It doesn't stop you as a principal investigator from leading the consortium or leading your participation in the consortium or fully participating. It doesn't, but there is no obligation for you as the PI to go on the secondments, though in most cases they tend to do that. So there are some very specific criteria for the staff who are going on the secondments. They must be under the direction and instruction of the sending organization for the duration of the secondment. Basically, what that means is that the organization sending them on the secondment needs to be able to tell them what they need to do while they're on the secondment. This could be through a number of different types of contractual arrangements. They need to be actively engaged in or linked some way to the research and innovation activities for that sending organization for at least 1 month before they go on their very first secondment. If they are part-time, then this would be pro rata. So if they're, say, 50% part-time, then they would need to be involved for 2 months before they could go on a secondment. They need to have the right experience necessary to undertake the activities while they're on the secondment, which I think makes sense. And while they're on the secondment, they must work full time. So even if their contract normally is a part-time contract, they will need to have kind of adjustments and amendments to that to allow them to work full time when they're on the secondment. And there needs to be some sort of inbuilt return mechanism so that they're bringing back that knowledge that they've gained while on secondment to that sending organization. Now, I keep using the word staff, and this is very deliberate because you can send anybody provided they meet certain this criteria and they have the expertise to do the work. This is PhD students, technical staff, research assistants, postdoctoral researchers, senior researchers, managerial, administrative. So, you know, and many, many more. It's really about ensuring that the right people who have the right experience are going on the secondments. We do often get questions about master's students. In general, master's students are still considered to be in a training phase. And since the work that they're going to be doing, it really is work, they typically don't have the necessary knowledge and expertise that is required for them going on secondment. Now, it doesn't mean that it never happens. It just means that this needs to be a discussion at that time with the EC project officer to kind of speak to them and to get that agreement in place to justify why you need to send the master's student. I mention it here because if you're thinking about who you're wanting to send, I wouldn't automatically assume that it would be the master's students, but you could start at PhD and up. I will also say that when it's a little bit easier now under the rules of Horizon Europe in terms of the scheduling of the secondments at the proposal stage, but it's important to think about when you would be going on the secondments for the proper implementation of the project and thinking about other commitments that you might have, particularly if you are a senior researcher who has got teaching responsibilities. For instance, it might be difficult for your organization to kind of let you go on secondment in the middle of a teaching term, for instance. Now, so we've covered the consortium, we've got your eligible researchers. Now, what about the actual secondments themselves? There are some very strict rules about the eligibility of the secondments. As I mentioned, Marie Curie, and in particular, Staff Exchange really supports this 3I approach to mobility: intersectoral, international, and interdisciplinary. And we really do see this in Staff Exchange. So what we've kind of got here, this is taken from the EC guidance. These are the sending organizations, and these are the receiving organizations, those that will be hosting the seconded staff. So if you're going from kind of between sectors, so academic to the non-academic sector, then the location of the organization doesn't matter because you are having this intersectoral mobility. Equally, if you're going to international mobility, it doesn't matter the sector because you've ticked the box for international mobility. So you could have an academic organization. So for example, in the UK, sending researchers to an academic organization in Canada, for instance, it's the same sector, but because it's international, that will be accepted. Now, for Horizon Europe, they do also allow for interdisciplinary secondment. So this is within the same sector, so academic to academic, non-academic to non-academic, within the same kind of category of organization, i.e. member state or associated country, provided that it doesn't exceed 1/3 of the total secondments. So interdisciplinary, it has to be a smaller number of secondments compared to either intersectoral or international secondments. Now, participants from a third country, so a third country associated partners that are in a low to middle income country are actually eligible for funding from the European Commission and receive funding to actually send researchers on a secondment to an associated member state or member state or an associated country to Horizon Europe. Participants such as yourselves who are in a third country which is not considered to be low to middle income, we will talk about how the funding will work, but if you are wanting to send researchers on secondment, then you would need to have your own funding to cover the cost of those secondments. And those secondments would technically sit outside the confines of the Marie Curie project, even though they would be fully expected to fully interact in the project and actually contribute to the successful delivery of that project. Just a little bit more about the secondments. They need to last between 1 to 12 months. You need to complete at least 12 months. So this is 30 days regardless of how many days are actually in that month, after which time the funding is pro rata. The secondments don't have to be done in like a 1 month or 12 month or 6 month, that kind of period. You can split them in to several kind of stays to add up to the total maximum of 12 months. And that could even be split into weekly visits. You cannot go shorter than weekly, but you can do kind of, 4 weeks to add up to, for example, to the 1 month, and you could do that maybe over like a 6-month period, and then you would still meet the required criteria of it being a minimum of a 1 month secondment. And as I said, the staff must work full-time on the secondment, and there has to be an inbuilt mechanism to really bring that knowledge back. And I've just kind of reiterated what was in the table beforehand in Word format, in just kind of explaining it a bit more in words in this box here. In terms of the split secondments, this is really just to kind of explain what I've just said here. And as you'll get a copy of the slides, so I won't go through it. So just a little bit about the funding. So the Commission provides a contribution to kind of different elements. The first one we talk about is the researcher component. So that's this kind of unit cost per person a month. And I said the 1 unit is equal to 1 month of eligible staff. So this is the total amount, I should say. So this is the staff member unit cost, really towards the contributes towards the costs associated with going on the secondment. So that's flights, food, subsistence, accommodation, etc. It does not cover salaries. This is also why we deliberately use the word staff member, because it is expected that the organization will continue to pay their salary while they're on their secondment. There's also funding for research, training, and networking, and then management and indirect costs, or the costs effectively of overheads for this total amount per person per secondment month. So this is just to kind of reiterate what we've just seen, and also to include this additional allowance. So this is something called the special needs allowance, which can be requested if you have someone who's going on the secondment who has additional needs relating as a result of kind of disabilities with regards to physical or mental disabilities, that they need some additional support to enable them to successfully go on the secondments. So for example, they might need someone to accompany them on the secondments, for instance, or they might need to fly kind of a first class to accommodate things like mobility issues that they might have. The institutional costs, so the research, training, and networking, management, and indirect costs, are completely dependent on the person months. So if the person months the criteria have been fulfilled, you will automatically receive this. That's the benefit of the lump sum funding model that Marie Curie uses. So this just kind of reiterates a little bit of what I've just said. What I want to say for the research, training, and networking costs is, again, there's no defined categories per se of what is covered, because each project will have its own needs based on kind of what you've put into the proposal. So these will be contribute to costs, very simple research costs such as consumables, archival access, all those kind of general research expenses, as well as any other expenses related to training, the transfer of knowledge and networking as well. The management and indirect costs directly goes to the beneficiaries, and they cover their costs in relationship to the action. Often it gets top sliced a little bit by the coordinator to help cover those network-wide activities. Unlike some of the other projects, many of you might have been involved in collaborative projects where you yourself would declare your own costs as a beneficiary. That's not the case for Marie Curie staff exchanges. The third country associated partners don't actually declare their own costs at all. It's all the declarations go through the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries declare for the outgoing secondments for their own staff, as well as any incoming secondments from a third country, if that third country associated partner is eligible for funding. So what about funding for associated partners such as yourselves who would be hosting secondments? So those who are hosting secondments can receive funding to help cover their research costs, and depending on the situation, may also request funding to cover their own management and indirect costs, for example, their overheads. The funding will actually come from the beneficiary who is sending the staff member to them. The funding will be based on that unit costs that I've just showed you. And the amount and how this will work will really depend on your individual agreement with the sending beneficiary. Now, we've been involved in Marie Curie Staff Exchange and the predecessor, the RISE, for a number of years. And what we see is either this really done at a beneficiary to beneficiary level, or in some cases, particularly if you're going to be receiving a fair number of researchers from different sending organizations, it will be an agreement set at the whole project level, where the beneficiaries would give some other funding to the coordinator, who would then distribute that to the associated partners. And that saves you from having to have lots of different agreements with lots of different organizations. You just have one agreement with a coordinator for the consortium as a whole. In addition, so this is really for when you are receiving kind of individual staff members to do research at your organization. You might also, as associated partner, be involved in hosting or providing network-wide training or other kind of network activities to which there is a cost. And again, this would be something you would discuss with the coordinator, because it's possible to receive funding from the coordinator to cover those associated costs. The amount and how that arrangement work would really be dependent on a case-by-case basis, i.e. project-by-project basis. As I mentioned, the coordinator can top slice the management and indirect funds from the beneficiaries to help with these network-wide activities, and then some of that funding could be transferred and distributed to yourselves to actually help you with your costs associated with running those events. It's really important to discuss these arrangements as early as possible to make sure that there's no kind of misassumptions or miscommunications as to how much and how that will also work. Now, there is a kind of an additional option. You can request exceptional funding from the Commission if your involvement in the project is absolutely essential for the success of your project. And by I mean, like, it really is exceptional. Effectively, you have to be able to prove that without you and in the project cannot happen, that you have a set of skills, knowledge, expertise, and resources that no one else has. And that's why you, as the organization, as the individual, must be involved. It does happen, but it really is exceptional. So you do need to be, even if you make the case and you put it in the proposal, the evaluators could deem that actually you haven't made the case sufficiently enough, and they would award the project. They might award it without awarding the exceptional funding for yourselves as associated partner, not eligible for EC funding. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the staff exchange. Hopefully it's kind of given you a good oversight and a bit taster for what is actually an offer and how the project works. And at this point, I'll hand over to my colleague, Anne, who is going to be going through why you should get involved and kind of a bit more about how you can get involved, how you can find partners, and kind of some additional information for associated partners. So I'll keep sharing, and if you are there.
Yeah, I'm here, and I'll tell you when to move the next slide. So hi, I'm Anne. I will be presenting on why to get involved, how to get involved, and also the submission evaluation criteria. So Bronwyn, if you could please move on. So Bronwyn has told you a lot about the mechanics. So basically, you know, how does funding work? How do the secondments work? And I will be talking about the benefits of getting involved and how third countries can be involved. So there are two sides in terms of benefits of getting involved. The first one is on the staff members. So basically, staff members will develop transferable skills and competencies by, you know, being seconded to another institution where they learn these skills, and then return to their host institution, also their original sending institution, where they will be expected to teach these skills at the original sending institutions. The secondees employability, all these skills will be increased, and they will gain international exposure and also become part of a wider network. Now, in terms of the organizations, there's this knowledge transfer. By sending your researchers abroad or by hosting researchers, you will there will be knowledge transfer, because the researcher who returns to your institution, to the sending institution, will share what he or she has learned, or the researcher you're hosting can also share skills, knowledge, expertise they have picked up during their career. So there is a knowledge transfer. There's definitely also an aspect of increasing a research and innovation capacity. You might be a PI of a group, of research group, and you might have always wanted to, increase your AI capacity, new skills, etc., etc. And this is your chance by hosting, researchers who have these kinds of skills or other expertise that your group is currently lacking. You can basically gain these skills in your group through knowledge transfer. It also helps you to build sustainable partnerships across the world, international partnerships, and also intersectoral partnerships. As my colleague Brandon has mentioned, there's really a huge emphasis on intersectoral partnerships. So basically partnerships between academia and non-academic partners. Brandon, can you please move the slide? And how can you as how can third countries be involved, first of all? And how can you as a third country not eligible for funding be involved? Please note, first of all, that the international mobility and the knowledge exchange is key. And you can host secondees. Again, as outlined on the previous slide, by hosting secondees, there's this knowledge transfer happening at your institution where you can, learn new skills, where you can gain complementary expertise, etc. You can send your own staff on secondment. Again, it's important to note here that the funding rules apply. Canada and US are not low to medium income countries, or not considered low to medium income countries by the European Commission. Hence, they are not eligible to receive funding. However, you can choose, if you have the funding sources, to fund these secondments yourself. You also have the opportunity to provide other training and networking opportunities, as my colleague mentioned. Or what we've also seen sometimes, researchers may choose, or PIs may choose to contribute to advisory committees, project boards, or other activities in the network, where basically they are working more in external capacity. So not basically contributing directly by hosting or sending, but basically more in an advisory role. This is also a great opportunity for you as a PI or as a researcher to get involved in, European networks with European partners without, let me put it this way, it's more in a gentle way and not directly sending or welcoming researchers. You can participate as a key stakeholder or as a project user, or you can provide other resources. So there are a lot of different ways of getting involved in the Staff Exchanges project, and it's up to you, basically to you, what you want to do with these opportunities, how you want to get involved. And that being said, can you please go to the next slide? That being said, let's now discuss the US and Canada participation in Horizon 2020, the predecessor of the current program, Horizon Europe, just that I can give you some numbers as well, and not, only talk theoretically. So in terms of overall American participation, as you can see on the left-hand side, Canada and US were actually the highest, had the highest numbers of projects and were the highest numbers of participating institutions. And for the RISE projects, that's on the right-hand side, the predecessor of the Staff Exchanges, the scheme we are currently talking about, you can see that 59 Canadian researchers participated in exchanges, and over 260 researchers from Europe and across the world were sent to Canada. So basically, you can really see the knowledge web, the network that were built during these times, or during these projects. In terms of US researchers, 174 US researchers participated in the exchanges, and over 1,700 European researchers came to the US. Again, you can see the number of secondments, number of secondees basically, that came to different countries, and also the knowledge transfer that must have happened during these secondments. Next slide, please. Here we just have selected 2 Horizon 2020 projects. Just basically that you can see the scope of Staff Exchanges projects. As my colleague said, Marie Curie Staff Exchanges are fully bottom-up, so it's up to you to choose the research area, to choose the research topic in collaboration with your partners, of course. But as you can see here, there is an EU contribution, and you can see here basically the secondment, the topic, but also the participating universities. And you can see that in this particular project, Harvard, McGill, University of California, Stanford, Princeton, other universities participated. And I would encourage you to have a look on Cordis. I'll share the links in a second to see which institutions participated in research projects or Marie Curie staff exchange projects in your area, in your research area. Next slide, please. Again, this is another example of a Marie Curie staff exchanges under the Horizon 2020 call. Due to lack of time, I'm not going to go over this one in detail, but again, the slides will be shared. And if you are interested, you can always click on the links and read up on these projects. Next slide, please. I promised you links where you basically can find all the funded research projects under Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. That's the Cordis website on the left-hand corner. Once you receive the slides, just click on the links and you will be taken directly to these websites. And you can then basically filter according to yes participation or participation, with Canadian researchers or specific key partners, specific key research areas, whatever you want. From the information we've received, and I hope I haven't misinterpreted the information the European Commission has kindly provided on EURAXESS North America. So far, Canadian entities have participated in 80 Marie Curie staff exchanges projects so far, and 40 Marie Curie staff exchanges projects for US entities. So you can see there is an interest by both Canadian and US university to participate in the scheme and basically exchange the knowledge or welcome secondees or send secondees to European partners. Here's just a Horizon Europe project I found just to basically highlight again. There is really no size fits all. All Marie Curie staff projects are different. They have different partners, different research topics, different contributions. And that being said, let's go to a really specific Marie Curie project I've selected. Next slide, please. Which I selected because I found it really interesting. So this one is called Graphs Algebras. It's a Horizon Europe project, and it's focused on graphs via algebras. Apparently that's mathematics, and I should know more about it, but I don't. And what I found interesting, 25 project partners, apologies to say for me, 25 partners are involved in this project. And 15 of those were either in Canada or the United States. And I have the list screenshotted here. And you can again see that there is no, one size fits all Marie Curie staff exchanges projects. It would be very, boring if it were. And the Marie Curie staff exchanges project you form will really depend on you, your partners, the research projects, and basically the skills you want to learn, your partners want to learn, the knowledge exchange you want to do, and the training you want to give to your researchers. Next slide, please. That being said, let's discuss how to get involved as associated partners. Thanks. You'll find all the necessary information on the Marie Curie Staff Exchanges Project website. There are no tricks there. The European Commission has not, chosen to pepper the internet with different links to all the necessary documents. All the documents you need and you and your partners will need for a successful project application are on this core web page. And again, once the presentation has been published, you can just click on this link and you will be taken directly to this website. This, as an aside, this is not specific to Marie Curie. If you want to get involved in Horizon Europe or any other funding programs, ESC or Marie Curie, the European Commission will always have all the necessary documents for a successful application on one website. And on this website, you'll find the guidance for evaluators. You'll find the standard application template. So really, you need to fill out the template you need to fill out with your project details. We'll talk about this in about 10 minutes. An online manual on how to submit an application, guide for applicants, reference documents, And also, sorry, I didn't list it here. They have a partner find a partner section, where basically you can publish your advert to find partners or have a look at and find partners who might be interested in a collaboration. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, finding partners. That's the keyword now. You said, okay, I'm convinced I want to get involved in a Marie Curie Staff Exchanges projects, but how do I find, European partners or any kind of partners in the research area? First of all, I would encourage you to use the Marie Curie matchmaking platform. The link will take you directly to this platform, and you basically publish an advert on your skills, your competencies, your research area, the kind of research project you approximately want to do, etc. And basically you look for partners there and you can contact them. It's a free service and it's very user-friendly. You can also use the partner search function on the Staff Exchanges core web page itself, either to find partners or publish your own advertisement. I would encourage you to publish your own advertisement as well, because this way you will get seen. You can use your existing networks. So one thing Marie Curie Staff Exchanges is actually good is, building bridges, internationally, intersectorally. But you can always, again, choose to already use the network you have in order, to provide, to get the training, to, get the knowledge transfer you will get during Marie Curie Staff Exchanges project while you're undertaking the research project. One thing we have noted, or we've generally noted as an advice, what we've seen has been very helpful. So a lot of successful applicants have said, well, I've just cold emailed potential partners and I've been successful. That is possible. That's also previous applicants have been very successful doing that. But what we would encourage you in this case is to be really clear on what you want to do in your email, what research project you are proposing, what you're contributing to the project. Make sure your internet presence is up to date. We actually had a discussion with an applicant who was like, I had no idea what this guy even wanted, and his internet presence was not very clear. So really do your homework before you cold email potential partners. Do your homework about what you'll be contributing, etc. And I will be going over these details on the next slide or so. So don't worry. And the last thing, I've already mentioned it, but the Skłodowska webpage, which I mentioned a few slides ago, is really good for having a look at past funded projects, as a past funded Horizon Europe project, but also projects, Marie Curie Staff Exchange projects funded in the past. And you can have a look at previous projects in your research areas to identify potential collaborators, because they have been previously involved in Horizon Europe projects and they might be interested in getting involved in another project. Again, just an advice. Do your homework, cold email them and ask them whether they want to be involved with you in the Marie Curie Staff Exchanges project. Next slide, please. I've promised that we'd go a bit over what am I contributing to the project, what do I need to think about when writing a cold email or when thinking about a project, when thinking about the proposal for a Marie Curie Staff Exchanges project. So here are some questions you need to ask yourself from the beginning. And it's not, I think, personally, I would say it's not only relevant for Marie Curie Staff Exchanges project, it's relevant for all Horizon Europe schemes or all research projects. You need to think about what do you hope to get out of this collaboration? What skills do you want to learn during the Marie Curie Staff Exchange? So what research capacity you want to build? What skills should your group pick up? What new expertise? Or if you send someone, who do you want to send them to? Do you want to have, gain international exposure? Do you want to gain intersectional exposure? A bridgehead to a country, basically new research ties, these kinds of questions, all these kinds of questions you have to think about before getting involved. Also, what I would encourage you to think about is what will your partners, for example, businesses, get out of the collaboration. So we've had Marie Curie Staff Exchanges who are successful with, of course, industrial participation. But basically, one of the key things what the successful applicant was thinking is, what will they get out of, collaborating with me on a Staff Exchanges project? Do I send people to them? Will I send researchers to me? How are we going to play this? And questions you can ask yourself is, will this project solve a problem for the businesses? Will they gain new skills? Do they want to gain new skills? Who do I send to the business partner? Does the project have synergies to other projects? And what I would also encourage you to think about, especially on a staff exchange project, is complementary knowledge. So you might have knowledge which your secondment partner, is lacking, but another secondment partner might have knowledge you are lacking, and so vice versa. So really think about complementary skills. Think about what you want, what skills, expertise you want to pick up, what research capacity you want to build, and so on. And lastly, really clear intellectual property rights straight from the beginning, because especially when working with businesses, one of the, let's say, misunderstandings that can occur is related to intellectual property rights. So please think about this as early as you can and agree on this in writing as early as you can. It will save you a lot of headaches later on. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, now we are going to discuss the submission and evaluation. However, given the late hour in Brussels and also the fact that I will be holding a webinar on the 22nd of November on this exact topic, we will not go into too much detail, but I will give you basically the overview that you are fully aware of what it means to basically submit as an associate, submit a Marie Curie Staff Exchange proposal as an associate partner. Again, as a gentle reminder, first of all, the core web page contains all information relevant for a successful application, including the submission link. Next slide, please. And we get the submission link in a moment, but first, just a brief note on the proposal, because sometimes there are misunderstandings. So for Marie Curie Staff Exchanges project proposal, the submission is separated into two parts. Part A is an online submission mask, where you basically fill out administrative information about the applicants. This will include you as associate partners as well. So simple administrative information, basically. Part B, as you can see on the right-hand side, a screenshot of one of the parts, is the standard application template that will be downloaded from the submission mask or from the submission portal, and basically involves a technical description of the project according to the core evaluation criteria. We'll discuss them in a second. But basically, the European Commission will be providing you with a template with questions, which basically you will have to address. Basically, what is your research project about? How will you guarantee that long-term collaborations are made during the project, etc.? We'll discuss this again in a second. One thing to note: please follow the standard application template. I'm not seeing Brandon's face, but I can imagine it. We sometimes get questions about, do I need to follow the formatting rules? Yes, please follow the formatting rules. Please follow the structure. The European Commission has provided you with very clear guidance on how to write this, how to fill out the template. Please fill out the template according to these instructions. Do not invent your own guidelines here. Because quite frankly, if you do, and if the European Commission thinks that you choose a different font size basically to circumvent the page limit, they will ask you to reformat the entire proposal according to the formatting rules. And if specific pages are over the page limit, they will be cut from the proposal. So really, just follow the formatting rules, and you're all set. Next slide, please. Okay, I promised you some information about the submission system. And here it is. So basically, on the web page, on the core web page, you find a submission link, which is just have to click. And once you're in there, you will be taken directly to this submission portal. It's called the Funders and Tenders Opportunities Portal. And on the left-hand side, you can see in blue a link where you basically will download the part B, which I just mentioned. And part A, the online submission mask, is basically where you need to fill out administrative information. And please note that institutions register on the portal and they get a PIC number. And you will need to provide that PIC number of your institution as part of your application. If you're not sure what the PIC number of the institution is, please get in contact with the research office of the institution. And you know, it's also, Bronwyn mentioned this beforehand, but it's also making sure that your institution has been properly evaluated by the European Commission as either an academic or non-academic institution. That's also something which I would encourage you to contact your research office about as early as possible, and just make sure that you get these administrative details correct. And again, I will be providing the link at the end, but we will be holding a webinar on these details at the end of November. Next slide, please. Okay. How to include associated partners, yourselves, in the proposal. You must include yourself in Part A with all your administrative details, even if you don't request EC funding. This is basically so that the European Commission is aware that your institution has been legally validated. You are basically, let's say you exist, you have been legally validated, all the details are correct. And you must be fully, your participation, your contribution must be fully detailed in Part B as well. And even if you do not request, or if you do not request funding, you must still include 0 number of seconded researchers and 0 number of person months in the proposal. Next slide, please. Okay, and again, we'll be going through that in more detail in the webinar at the end of November. Associated partners must provide a letter of commitment. This letter of commitment basically must outline your contribution to the project and must demonstrate your real and active contribution to the project, and it must be signed by an authorized person of your very institution. And one thing, the reason why I'm mentioning this, why I'm stressing this, is it might take some time to get this letter signed. So if you are interested in getting involved in American Staff Exchanges, I would encourage you to think about what will my contribution be, how can I contribute, and also who needs to sign this letter and how much time will it give me, will I have to get this letter signed. You do not want to run around 1 week before submitting the proposal and thinking, oh my God, I need to get this letter signed. I would really encourage you to understand as early as possible who will be signing this letter and how long this will take. The template for this letter is provided in the standard application form. Please just follow it. Please, follow this template. It says it, because otherwise, if you do not follow the template, if you do not really explain what you will be doing, you will get penalized during the evaluation process. The other things are not minor things, but are more technical details. The letter needs to match the proposal with the call acronym and the call identifier. And again, if you're providing a financial contribution, you need to make this clear in the letter as well. Next slide, please. So the evaluation criteria. Okay, the American Staff Exchanges project has 3 evaluation criteria, which are weighted. As you can see, 50, 30, 20. They are outlined in the work program. I've provided links here. And the guide for evaluators is also published on the fallback page. That being said, let's now go through the different criteria. So excellent. First of all, excellence, weighted 50%, you must think about the research project. What kind of research project I'm proposing? Is it innovative? Does it go beyond the state of the art? Is it ambitious? So basically, research project you're proposing and how it interfaces with the proposed methodology. There are some, I know it's a lot to take in at the moment, but we'll be going through some details in a second. But basically here you discuss the research project, you discuss the methodology, and you will discuss the quality of the proposed interactions between the participating organizations. This is about the research project. The impact one is about you need to convince the evaluators that this research project will develop new and lasting research collaborations and will achieve the transfer of knowledge this scheme is basically designed for. So basically, how will you guarantee that knowledge will be transferred, and also how will you ensure that by partaking in the schemes, your staff members will gain new skills, will partake in skills development, and how will this enhance their career objectives? And then another aspect of impact is also what kind of measures are there in place to maximize the impact of your research outcomes and results? For example, will you have scientific, societal, or economic impacts? You do need to have all three. Only one is enough. For example, you could have scientific impact. Your research will broaden the current frontiers, will go over the current frontiers of your research, will basically lead to new outcomes, will lead to new thinking in your research area. But it could also have societal impacts or economic impacts. And if so, that is for you to discuss in the proposal. Don't leave these kinds of aspects out. You really need to discuss them in detail so that evaluators can gain understanding of the full impact your Marie Curie Staff Exchanges project will have. Sorry, I'm looking at the time. I'm aware that time is slipping by, and I'll be quick. Okay, the last criterion is the quality and efficiency of the implementation. So you really need to be, after outlining the project, after outlining the transfer of how the transfer of knowledge will work and how you will establish a long-lasting network, after outlining the impact and how you will contribute to the career perspective of the seconded researchers, you'll also need to discuss the quality and effectiveness of the work plan, the assignment of risk, etc. So basically, how will this project be actually implemented? And a part of this is also we need to describe the quality, capacity, and role of each hosting institution, and the extent basically to which they will be working together, what each institution basically brings to the table. Next slide, please. Especially to people new in Horizon Europe, or sometimes, I think at the beginning it was more, but sometimes we still see that some people read through the evaluation criteria and say, what is the gender dimension of research or open science practices? Can you say a bit more? And especially for Horizon Europe, the European Commission puts a huge emphasis on making sure that the proposals discuss or include a gender dimension, discuss or include open science practices, and also discuss scientific, societal, and economic impacts of the research. I will be discussing this in the next slide. But this is basically part of the European Commission's efforts to make sure that there is equality between genders, there's more diversity in research staff, or research in general, or research outcomes in general, that open science practices are followed. So basically, European Commission wants European research or European funded research to be as open as possible, accessible as possible, to be used by other researchers. And they also want that their research has either a scientific, societal, and economic impact. Ideally all three, but at least one of these three. Sorry, Brandon, can you please move the slides? So for further consideration, we'll be going through these points, and then we're open for questions. So very briefly, Marie Curie, as Brandon outlined in the beginning, is a research program, that is focused on the researcher. It's the researcher, basically, their training, their career, and broadening their career perspective, making sure they gain new skills, etc., is at the forefront. But also, as part of this, Marie Curie, or ESDC, wants to ensure that there's a good research environment for the researchers. Here you can see three links. I would, especially if you want to participate in future Marie Curie skills, encourage you to go over them and make sure that you're aware of what the European Commission is asking for Marie Curie funded researchers, what basically they want them to be in a good research environment. Please, next slide. Okay. And as well, there are the Marie Curie guidelines for supervision. It's recommendations. This is the recommendation to be implemented on a best effort basis. But it is basically making sure that researchers funded under Marie Curie or Marie Curie projects get training and adequate or the best possible supervision. And this also includes basically training and professional development for supervisors as well. And there should always be some kind of procedures, transparent procedures in place in case there's conflict between different parties, especially it's perhaps a bit more relevant for the postdoctoral fellowships, but there should be guidelines in place to basically ensure that researchers, Marie Curie funded researchers, are well supervised and have access to all the training they will need for their professional development. Next slide, please. Here I just listed some Marie Curie related EU policies. Again, if you get into the nitty-bit of it, you basically see how it all fits together, and especially the open science and policy, which I will outline on the next slide. So if you can please go to the next slide. Awesome. I would like to spend a little bit more time on this. I'm aware of the time ticking by. I would like to spend a little bit more time on open science just because it's relevant also for other Horizon Europe projects. European Commission basically wants Marie Curie funded projects to have an open science aspect to them, which means that the research you do should be open to all, so should be published in open peer-reviewed journals. If you have any kind, if you write any kind of scripts, they should be published on an open server. Your research results or anything you create as part of your research should be available to other researchers to use. And the credo here is as open as possible, as close as necessary. So there is also scope for you to work on intellectual property rights, but the default should be that you basically use open science practices. Next slide, please. Your research proposal, and I mentioned this a few slides ago, should have a gender and intersectionality aspect. And basically what this means is you'll need to think about how your research relates to gender and intersectionality. For example, if you're working on, let's say, drug development, and you will do testing in, let's say, as a part of a pharmaceutical clinical trial, you'll need to think about, am I testing it only on men, only on women? Who am I testing this on? Am I really, having a gender dimension here that it will benefit everyone, that it will not only benefit one half of the population? How will including this gender component actually, increase the quality of the research, enhance the relevance of the findings? Can the findings be used to to bridge gaps between the current state of art and research, etc. Sorry, I was looking for the word and I'm not finding it. It's too late for me. But also what you can think about in terms of gender and intersectionality is also what about your the researchers working on your consortium? What about the external advisors? Is there some gender balance? Is there some intersectionality? Is there some diversity basically among the people working on the project? Or if there is an imbalance in your research area in general, how can your project help bridge that gap? Next slide, please. Okay, so the last slides will be on dissemination, exploitation, communication. As part of your project, you will also need to think about these aspects. So dissemination is about your research projects and how they will be promoted and disseminated amongst your peers. So you will basically need to make sure that your research project, your research outcomes are published, are available for others to use. Others are made aware of them. You're going to conferences, you're promoting them, using a blog, using basically tools at your proposal to basically making sure that other researchers in your research areas can use your research results. Exploitation is more like you're using these research results for commercial purposes or in public policy making. You do not, for example, if you do not intend to use them for commercial purposes, that's okay. The European Commission has specific support there available for you. You just need to make sure that other people could use them for any kind of other purposes, be it in policy making, be it in commercial purposes, etc. And communication is making sure that the general public is aware of your research and your research outcomes throughout the project lifespans. So for public engagement, there are a variety of channels you could use, Twitter, a blog, a website, definitely a website. You could go to schools, you could write articles, but there needs to be some form of communication because the European Commission wants the results of their funded projects to be communicated to the wider public. Next slide. This is what I already mentioned, and in the interest of time, let's just go to next slide, please. Okay, these will be the last slide. So again, as proposal advice, read all call documentation, read the evaluation criteria, and please closely follow the call requirements and the proposal template. Please follow the proposal template, especially at times. Read through the expected outcomes and follow the outcomes, follow the evaluation criteria, and make it really easy for the evaluators to find this information. Use clear language, use tables, use drawings if appropriate. And I would strongly encourage you, because we've seen that it was helpful, find colleagues who will proofread drafts with the evaluation criteria in mind, and also consider any relevant EU policy documents. And if your proposal highlights EU policy challenges, priorities, or other societal economic challenges, highlight this in your proposal. So don't miss out because you think you are being too nice, or you want to be, you don't want to mention everything. Really highlight if your proposal hits EU policy goals. I think now on the last slide, please. Okay. We have, they will be on the slides. There we have 2 links for upcoming webinars on the 21st and 22nd of November. You're very welcome to join us. They will be in the slides, will circulate. Oh, sorry, I'm running. So again, these are the call details. The call is open. The call will close on the 28th of February. And this is the latest date you can submit your proposal by. So please submit as early as possible. You can submit as many times as you want before the call deadline, but please submit as early as possible because once you hit the 28th of February at 5 p.m. Brussels time, you will not be able to submit again. You will not be able to submit. That's really the final deadline. You will be notified around June, July 24, and the earliest project start is in November 24. And next slide, please. These are 2 webinars. Again, the slides will be circulated. You can just click on the links and sign up. And we'll be holding a more detailed session on the practical details at the end of November. Okay, thank you, Fran. We are now ready for questions.
Anne and Brian, I'd like to thank you both. I've learned a lot listening to you, and I'm sure the audience has as well. I'm encouraged by the fact that there have been few questions throughout the whole session. From what I have currently, I think what I'll do is I'll read one that your presentation, I believe, addressed, but just sort of for the record, we can address the question and get it in your own words again. And then a question that was submitted in pre-registration I'd like to ask. I also, before we start the Q&A, I just want to add that, as Anne mentioned, EURAXESS can be a part of your communication plan, is where it's in our mandate, and we're happy to give beneficiaries the platform to serve as testimonials and success stories. So if you do end up embarking on a staff exchange or otherwise benefiting from any sort of EU funding or research collaboration, even without funding involved, please do reach out to us at EURAXESS North America, and we can start a conversation and think out loud about ways that we can highlight your success and further support your career. So with that, I think I'll start with the pre-registration question that we've received first. This is, can you apply for an exchange before you have a tenured or permanent position? And I guess I'll echo Bronwyn's, or excuse me, I'll start by pointing to your earlier comments that although the official terminology is that it's 3 or more institutions or organizations, in practical terms, we can think of it as 3 PIs. So if I'm interpreting the question correctly, I think that may be what the asker is referring to. But I defer to you for the question, and I'll be happy to read the next one after that as well. And I'll encourage the audience in attendance still to go ahead for the Q&As.
Yeah. So you don't have to have a 10-year position to apply, but what you do need to have is an employment contract or arrangement with an organization. So it's not like an individual fellowship where you could use this kind of as kind of a step towards employment. You do have to have some sort of employment kind of contract. As I said, it's about sending staff members from an organization, but you can be at any level. You don't have to be tenured. to go on the secondments, but also you don't have to be tenured to propose the proposal or be part of that either. So it's about having the right skills for the project. That's really, really crucial.
Thank you. And I'll go to the question submitted in the chat. Is a Canadian researcher in a consortium with 2 European Union partners, do I understand correctly that I need to have money to pay for any staff from my group to participate in the action? Or would this be paid by one of the EU partners?
So Canada and US are both are not considered low to medium income countries. They're considered high income countries. As such, the European Commission would not pay for your staff to be sent to, European universities. Bronwyn has mentioned this possibility of exceptional funding, but again, this is only if you can really demonstrate in your proposal that without your participation, the entire project will fall apart, and there's no one else in the world who can do the things you do. So yes, you will have to pay for your staff to be seconded. But again, I wouldn't see this as an encouragement. You can still host researchers, you can still participate in other ways.
And can I just add that as by other ways, all the networking, all the dissemination events, conferences, seminars that would be run, your staff would fully be able to participate in those types of activities as well. And to make it a bit easier for yourself, you could actually host some of those activities so you wouldn't need to fund their participation and flights to Europe.
I think I'll add to this also just by mentioning that many of the researchers in Canada know that or are waiting for updates on negotiations between the European Commission and Canada about the latter's potential association to Horizon Europe, which, as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, in simple terms, makes it associated countries are treated as if they were EU member states. I should just add and clarify that this would only be for Pillar 2 in the case of Canada. And this summer in July, New Zealand became the first country not in the general vicinity of Europe to become an associated country. That's a novelty under Horizon Europe. And that too is only for Pillar 2. So when I mentioned that there's 17 countries currently associated to Horizon Europe, and that 16 of those are in the region of Europe, those 16 countries are associated in Pillars 1 and 2 alike. But I don't want anyone to think that if Canada and the EU do successfully move forward with association, that nothing would change with regards to Pillar 1 and therefore the MSCA, including the staff exchanges. So whether it's the news you want to hear or not, it at least helps you move forward with knowing what's on the table. So I don't see anything else in the chat. I'll take a moment just to allow people to ask questions and jump in.
Yeah, there used to be in Jackson, you can confirm this, but my tech used to provide, there used to be funding through them to support Canadian engagement in Horizon 2020. I believe that was still in place, at least initially in Horizon Europe. There's also other kind of schemes as well that you might be able to access within the US for for Pillar 2, for instance. For those of you funded by the National Science Foundation, you can actually fully participate in Pillar 2 calls under health. So there are some funding, other types of funding available. It might just, and this is where EURAXESS might be able to help you identify those other funding sources.
This is a really great point. Thank you for mentioning that, Bronwyn. I'm actually going to share in the chat right now a link to, I think, what is called the EU's co-funding mechanism guide, or CFM for short. On page 9 of this, they specifically highlight, they highlight country by country examples, and they have a section for Canada, a section for the US, and the MyTex example that you gave for staff exchanges specifically is listed there. So I would encourage you to consult the guide, consult also with your Canadian governmental colleagues and university support staff for more information on that and other Canadian government support. But that is encouraging to help all researchers in Canada. So I don't see any additional questions and answers. If something comes in at the last minute, I'll be very happy to read it off. But other than that, I'd like to give the floor to the two of you just to thank you again and to sign off. And as a reminder to all of those in attendance, thank you very much. You'll get an automated email from us via the Zoom platform tomorrow with the links to the presentations, the video recording, and you can always email us with your questions and concerns. My colleague Darren and I are here at your service, so please do not hesitate to contact us. Bronwyn, and please take it away, and thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I would just want to say a big thank you for everybody joining today. And we do hope that we've kind of encouraged you at least to look at staff exchange a little bit more. And I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
I just wanted to add that again, just to basically for that, we will be holding 2 stock exchange events. You're very welcome to join, and particularly the second one on the practical details on how to submit the application might be helpful, because I will be going in detail over the budget, how to fill out the budget. And even though, you know, it might not be relevant for you, it's just really interesting to see how this will work.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.